Hi, my name is Zach. To my left is
Apollo.
and to my right,
Matthew.
and we are the Anime Reviewers. Today we are reviewing Dr. Stone, Episode 2, King of the Stone World. Overall, I was alright with the episode. It felt to me a lot shorter than the first one, even though its run length is still the same. They're all about 22 minutes. Yeah, so this episode opens up with, basically picks up right after the end of the first episode. Senku's still sitting on that, log table thing.
It starts with a brief recap, and I think most of the episodes do, where it does show you a brief summary and then picking up right where the other one ended.
Yes, that is true. But that basically every anime, the first episode is basically the only episode of any anime that doesn't have a recap.
Something that used to be a staple of episodic shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to be the episode, and they're all excited that they can now revive people, and Taiju's asking Senku who to revive, who do we revive first, and Senku's like, it doesn't really matter to me so long as we don't revive a murderer.
It would be very bad luck if they did that.
It'd be very bad luck if they revived a murderer. Cough, cough. Taiju gets this really concerned look on his face, and then Senku's like, you know what? I don't want to choose. You get to pick. Knowing exactly who Taiju's going to pick is, it's Taiju's arc. He's like, I know exactly who to pick, and then they go to Yuzuriha's, which he's all excited for, and really happy about, and they're like, and Senku, Taiju asks about the revival process, and will it work, I think. And Senku actually mentions that he tried doing it, after they did the stone bird, apparently he also did it on, a couple of stone corpses, which are people that he found that were, broken to pieces.
Yeah, at least revived remains, because the image shown is about that big around, and they sent it out.
Yeah, it's censored about yay big, and he says he tried to revive them, and he, the first time he talks about, he's got this very, evil, mad scientist,
almost like he did dissection on a body.
Exactly. But then he talks about it in a more normal fashion, where he's like, it looks like if they've been broken. He mentions that he tried to put the pieces back together. Now, from what they understand it appears that if you're broken to pieces, you are dead.
Yeah.
That reviving you is not an option.
Once you've been severed, there's no reconnecting those.
And he even says that he tried to reassemble.
Yeah, he says he tries to reassemble them, but they turn into a pile of meat.
And they blur out the little pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, go revive her, and it's like, yeah, finally, you gotta bring her back. And then Taiju has a realization. She's naked! It goes to jab Senku in the eyes so he won't see her naked.
And then he says he's a scientist. And that's one of the things that, that's one of those, moments that really, made me laugh in an anime that is, where, a lot of the jokes kind of fail on me, but that I thought was, really clever. Because he's about to do it, and then he realizes that she's naked, and it shows a little image of her being embarrassed that she's naked in front of them. But he specifically says, you don't get to see her naked. Something along the lines of, you don't get to see her naked, and then jabs him in the eyes like he does. And then he just feigns an indifference to seeing her naked, that he's such a lover of science, he doesn't care about women.
Well, it's not just that. It's the fact that they're in the stone world. What's it matter?
Yeah.
I think his line is, who cares if your ass or your
Dick is
hanging out.
Yeah, it's but she doesn't have a dick.
Yeah, Taiju gets so upset about that. He's like, that's not the... And Senku's like, that's not my point.
And then he picks her up and he asks her how
heavy
how heavy is she? And then he goes, she's not fat.
And again, he's like, that's not... Wouldn't it be... And he's like, that's not my point. Wouldn't it be 10 million times easier to revive her and have her walk?
And I just love how that reinforces the point I made from the first episode's review, was how that how he actually respects her.
Yeah. So right after Taiju picks her up and is running off, we hear a roar from off screen, and
That makes them run. First they're going to walk away.
First they're going to walk, and then they hear a roar from off screen. Senku tells Taiju to stop, waits a moment to sort of like pay attention to sort of focus on where that roar came from. And I can't remember, is it a second roar or do you see the lion?
I think it shows a close-up of the face of the male lion.
Yeah, I think it closes up.
Zooms in on him.
Yeah, so it shows a pack of lions. It's one male lion and I believe 4 females.
That's after the clip that you see the females. Initially, it's just the one.
Oh,
lion.
it's just the male? Okay. Yeah, so you see one lion approaching them, and then they book it away. And this lion starts chasing them. And of course, while they're running, like many series end up doing, the characters aren't paying attention and run off a cliff, which is one of the few most unreal. Like this show doesn't have a whole. Well, this show as a whole does not have a whole lot of unrealistic
That's why this
stuff.
episode, I
Like
feel, really
this episode definitely has a number.
The breaking the immersion of the world.
And,
Yeah, this particular episode does have a lot of world immersion breaking stuff based on what they did in the first episode.
Senku's line is, "I will defeat fantasy with science." And that to me seems to be this show saying up a little bit of fantasy that then they can be more scientific later, but they're establishing this as kind of a fantasy world initially.
Yeah, that's also why it doesn't shatter the immersion either, is it? And also their world's stone, like, okay, lions are in Japan, whatever. Like it's, and they magically get clothes that are well tailored, and they have no experience in tailoring.
Yeah.
Not that we know of, at least.
They didn't establish it. I'm a chemist. I can make ethanol. Like they do that, and they show that
He does seem to be a jack of all trades when it comes to because.
But he went to Africa to study Ebola. That's why he knows about lions.
We'll get to that in a second. Yeah. So, anyways, as we were saying, so after they're running away with the explanation of the lions, Taiju realizes that, or comes to the conclusion that they're not going to get away because the lions are chasing them. So he basically comes to a screeching stop. Which does the anime thing where he's running full speed and then stops on his heels and skids, which would make him which would make him fall like face first into the ground. Try dead stopping at a full sprint. You will. And Taiju Taiju stops, throws Yuzuriha, turns his arms to defend Senku, and tells Senku to run away. Because he's the scientist. He's the one with the only one with technological knowledge in order to restart humanity. So he has to get away. He has to be the one to flee. And then Senku corrects him very quickly after that and does not give him the chance to be the sacrificial hero. And basically informs him that no, you are completely wrong in this regard. Like the only way that humanity survives is if there is the two of us. I'm the brains, you're the bronze. I can do all the thinking, but I need you for the labor. Like I need someone. Like I can't. It's very clear he can't do this without him. Like
as established in the previous episode. Senku was barely able to survive on his own, and winter's approaching, because this is now fall.
No, they went through winter. It's spring again. It's spring again.
My bad. But anyway, so Senku has trouble surviving on his own, just to gather enough resources to be able to live. He needs someone with this endurance in order to supply him so he can focus on progressing technology.
Yep.
So Taiju is completely essential for this plan.
Yeah.
His girlfriend, not so much, but that's essential for him.
But it makes Taiju happy.
But she would actually be very great at gathering stuff. And she, after a period of time, she's a dainty woman. After a period of time, she'd learn how to split wood pretty damn good. Mm-hmm. And she cares. There's other shit she could, there's definitely things that she could certainly contribute. But I just love how that is completely neglected. And she's just like, well, they don't want to, but it won't.
Yeah, so they end up running away again, and Taiju informs Senku that, well, we're probably not going to end up getting away. I have one last ditch idea that might work. And he takes them to this character, Tsukasa. Shishio Tsukasa is his name. It's
human primate.
Yeah,
They
the
introduced the first episode.
Strongest primate high school.
Yeah, the strongest primate high
schooler.
schooler.
Yes.
Which was referenced in the first episode. Taiju happened to come across him when
And
gathering.
that's why he leads them back.
And that's why he leads him back there. I actually made a mistake in our first episode when I was talking about how his imagery was. Matt over here was correct. He's actually sitting in a very forward aggressive pose. I think what I was so focused on was his face, because his face seems very
just accepting,
very accepting and very serene of the event happening. His posture is, like you said, very aggressive and forward, and
I'm the king.
I'm the king.
Look at the title of that the episode, the king of the Stone World, which is what he where they lead him to. It's so great how he is. He's not the lion.
No,
it's him.
It's him.
Because you don't know you can punch a lion to death until you've tried it. Because even though he's strongest primate in high school, he never you know what? I'm 100% positive, with just an ego, like a psycho like him, would probably think that he could.
Yeah, so they pour the miracle elixir on top of his head, and of course, right after they pour it, the lions surround them immediately, because you need that tension, you need that scene, and he ends up waking up. The cracks end up happening across his face and his chest, and he wakes up.
Without moving immediately, mind you, because he
stays in this position.
And from that position, it just asks, "What's the situation?"
Well, first off, Taiju says, "I'm sure you have no idea what's going on after being frozen for thousands of years," and he's just like, "What's the situation?" It's very calm and very focused, which I like because one, it gives you a sense of who he is right off the bat. But two, the other interesting thing is Senku notices that. Because it cuts to a shot of Senku's face, who's wide-eyed and very
It narrows as
wide-eyed and narrows and And then then he calmly explains the situation that you have lines from your 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock, I believe was the line.
I think it's the other way around, but yes.
2 o'clock to 9, whatever.
Yeah.
I thought it was 6 to 9, but whatever.
No, you are correct, actually. It would be 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock.
I thought he said 9 to 2.
Yeah.
It doesn't,
that part isn't.
He just gives them general directions.
Yeah, he gives general directions. And he immediately says, "Got it."
Stands up and flings his arm forward that were encased in stone, shattering it and being like stone bullets going toward, pelting the lions and Taiju. And then rushes forward and punches the lion to death as it
turns. The male lion, the female lion run away from the rocks.
Yeah, the male lion, and it sounds like a gun blast. Not like a real one, but that's sort of what they're going for, is the supersonic, BOP!
Yeah, and not just punches the lion, but it goes flying and hits a tree. From charging at him, reverse direction slams into a tree, it's dead.
Yep. And then he glares at the female lions who back away and flee.
Oh yeah, I thought he scared him off with the rock, though. But yeah, he glares.
No, he glares them off.
Run, yeah.
Which, honestly, seeing that, I think most animals would.
That was something that I actually thought was really cool about his character. Was he was really he was subtly learning us, because he asked them, like you say, and he asked them questions to figure everything out without without expressing any kind of intent behind it. And Senku picks up on it, but it's still very clever.
Yeah. And although Senku picks up on it, he's not clear what to make of it either.
Yeah, he doesn't know what it means yet.
He at least knows that this guy isn't only a dumb brute, he has a sharp mind as well.
Yeah.
He's not broad.
Yeah, Tsukasa comments on it because he finds it weird.
He's never met these people before today, so
yeah.
That's not only do you have a sharp mind, but you're actively trying to develop science in this world right now.
Yep.
But that's actually one of the cool things about Tsukasa, is as you see he's kind of a marriage of the two characters, and then when he explains his backstory and stuff to them, like that whole part where, because that happens next, doesn't he explain? No, that happens later.
Pretty quickly
They
thereafter.
were
'cause
about to
they-
get calcium carbide was what
Oh, that's what they go. That's what.
Yeah. So what ends
want.
up happening after they introduce each other is he asks what they're eating. The Taiju mentions that he would love to eat meat till his belly's full, and Tsukasa's like, "Oh, you don't have to live like that anymore," and then goes chasing down a pack of boars.
And not just
Yeah,
chasing them down.
Yeah.
And outruns them, gets in front of them, and punches them off.
Kills all of them, mind you.
Kills all of them.
Just kill a boar, which would feed them all for months.
And then jumps
Jumps
between
from like
trees,
a couple of
catching
trees,
a bird.
catching birds. I
Has a
really
bird by
matter.
the neck in a superhero fantasy.
Oh,
game,
yes.
Which, like, that's one thing I like how you pointed out how, like, they say in that the fantasy is the, how, like,
He
the
gets
I
in
will
fantasy
use
world with science.
Yeah.
I like how that really, how he is that.
Yeah,
embodiment
Tsukasa
of that
is the
character, and they just
absolutely,
keep
yeah.
hammering that in with that part, and how he, like, cuts the lion's skin off, and has the perfectly tailored clothes.
Yeah, what here'd be a great thing is if that lion had a dark mane so we could call him Scar.
Human realm. Tsukasa represents the fantasy. He represents the guy that can run faster than a pack of boars, can in one punch send a lion probably at least 10 feet.
And kill it.
Jump from the top of one tree, catch a bird, and land in another.
And that looked like it was along a cliff edge.
Yeah, that looked
And in
like
the
it was...
future episode, he does even more.
He does even more
feats
insane
that
stuff.
are just like. That's
But
pretty
even following
severe.
that, like, he ends up going fishing with a spear, ends up generating a whirlpool around him by, like, doing this and catching, like, 15 fish or something.
and
At
it
the end,
skewers
it's
like 4 at the same time.
Yeah.
And those are also like piranha, teethy fish coming.
Yeah,
out.
I know.
Everything's a predator to him.
Yep. And he's just...
He is the ultimate predator.
Yeah, he's the ultimate predator. He's just rolling through everything.
Which is also cool of how that's what it seems to be one of the themes of the show is that all of them represent like the aspects of man.
Yeah. So they start smoking some of the fish. And Taiju's trying to figure out what he's doing with it, and Senku's they're explaining it's a preserving method.
Yeah.
With how much food that you see in that one moment, though, because I think it's like 4 or 5 boars stacked on each
Yeah,
other.
it's shoulder-tall pile of boars.
I think
all
it's like
the
4 or
fish
5
and
birds
the
in his
birds.
hand,
Yeah.
and like a spear that's I think maybe got 12 fish
And
on
then
it or
don't they have
something.
extra skewers
Well,
with more fish on
But
it,
like
too?
the number of bones left over by the time they finish their meal, they ate all the fish.
Oh,
That's one thing I thought was kind of silly, though, was the amount of food they have. They've just taken that one board would feed them 4 months. But I mean, again, that's nitpicky stuff. That if you think that's the nice thing is if you think about how they establish this as a fantasy, it's easy to fall back into that world. But they keep breaking the immersion to me because of that kind of stuff.
Well, I
because
think-
I'm such a geek for that.
see, I can sort of understand it because I can understand wanting to preserve a bunch of it very quickly because
of course.
remember, Senku's goal is to revive as many people as possible as quickly as
Well,
possible.
and then they would never go hungry because they can eat all the fish, and they don't have to. What's the word you spare? You're sparing in your speaking. Ration your food. Thank you. You don't have to ration your food because you have enough food to feed yourself for a year, and you'd still have stuff spoiled.
Yeah, I'd like to point out one thing that I hadn't thought of before until we were just discussing it, is think of the contrast, though, between how much he hunted and that initial respect shown for the lion, and how he never shows that respect towards life again.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, he takes the lion's life and
It's like, I was self-defense, but I still killed it. I should respect you, try to resolve it. And then it's like, oh, I can hunt for you, kill everything.
Well,
but he still
But
like
he
there's
doesn't
still
understand the
intensity.
world he is. He just wanted to know the situation, but now that he's like, he realizes. Again, the theme of the whole episode's that title is kind of the theme of that specific episode. The king, he is the king. He starts to see himself as the king because he's so powerful. Because he can just take life and have no consequences.
And
Yeah.
He's stronger than all of the predators, like you say about the fish being teethy animals.
Yep.
Yeah, and actually while they're eating, he walks over to he just gets up, walks over, and shatters a stone boulder, in a single punch, which again, fantasy element right there. Like he is the fantasy hero character.
Finds a buy-in.
Well, not really. but-
Unless you go to a McDojo.
It's all because he saw a body under there.
which again reinvigorates, what's his name, Taiju. But anyways, reinvigorates him that, oh, he's a heroic guy. Which also I think is part of why he showed that initial respect of, I don't know the situation, I don't know these people, I don't know the power balance, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to act super respectful and hesitant to kill.
Yeah, I think
he realizes, oh, they need me. I'm essential for my strength. Cool, I can be myself now.
Yeah, because when they're all sitting around after that, they're talking about what they need to advance, like what the most important thing, basically what's the next most important step for a technological civilization. And Senku uses his catchphrase, 10 million points to whoever gets the question right first. And it's great.
10 billion.
10 billion, sorry, 10 billion. His phrase is 10 billion, and then insert whatever measurement.
And then not 1 millimeter when he's unsure.
Yeah, when he's unsure or doesn't care, it's not 1 millimeter. But he says, "I'm 10 billion. It's 10 billion points to whoever gets it right." And Taiju takes it so seriously. He's like,
and I love the two answers that he gets from them, because the Taiju says smartphones.
"Yep."
Which I love how that's like, it's just this thoughtful thing. It's a very thoughtful thing about how that's really bettered society in some ways. And caused other problems, but then again, people said the same thing about newspapers.
Yeah, but also if you're talking about a technological civilization, especially because they're very clearly coming from a time period very similar to our own originally, when it was 3,700 years ago. They're very clearly coming from a similar historical background, timing-wise. And so cell phones are going to be very prevalent. So in a technological civilization, cell phones would be rather important. Smartphones specifically.
And I love how he, oh my god, of course I just say that, not Tsukasa, the other dude.
Senku just plays along with it.
Yeah, and I
you're
just
absolutely right, smartphones!
Yeah, but he says that you're too far ahead. We need to still be,
we're building.
You're 2 million, you're 2 million years, 2 million years ahead.
And how nice he is, but then when Tsukasa, so what? Tsukasa?
Yeah. Tsukasa.
He says steal, and he says again right, but it's still like But how he's more like he's not as like warm to him. But then again, he doesn't need that he knows
he doesn't kind of need to patronize Tsukasa's feelings. Also.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're right. That's a useful thing. We're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
What we need right now is
calcium carbonate.
That's it. Yep.
Also referred to as lime.
Yep.
Which they use for it's the white dust you see around baseball fields.
Which is
the exact the chalk. It's the exact example they even give in the show.
And any of you people who had school where you actually had chalk on boards, which I did for like 2 grades.
Yeah.
Like it was in chalk, and weird people who eat it. Even though you're not weird, you're people who like the taste of chalk. I drank milk. Probably not a good choice, though. Sorry, vegan.
Especially having watched The Boys. That's a bit awkward now.
I haven't gotten there yet.
You've seen a little bit. Homelander.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh God.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. No spoilers, but it'll ruin milk for you.
So, Tsukasa immediately, or not Tsukasa, Taiju goes into the simple brawn job of collecting shells.
And he also listed there are 4 key things that can be made with it.
Yeah, and they show them off. It's the first one is for agriculture and basically improving soil and things like that.
Helps you rapidly grow food and re-nurturing the soil. Fantastic for agriculture.
The second one was
mortar.
Mortar, yeah.
You bake it with sand, and that's how you make basic mortar.
It's a super basic. Well, he says it's a basic form of concrete. Yeah. They don't say it's concrete. They do specify it's basic because mortar isn't concrete. There is a difference.
But it allows you to now do more modern construction.
And they show them working on the build, like doing work on the building.
Yeah, it shows them adding to the mortar to it. And the third thing
was with seaweed.
With seaweed.
When they said
getting
sodium carbonate.
Yeah, sodium carbonate
with
and
oil onto that stone, and that makes a form of soap. Which, in this world without doctors, with a high risk of infection, getting an illness is death.
Yep.
So that becomes their Dr. Stone. Title drop.
And it's really interesting because Tsukasa's just there watching all of this and taking in the information. And he actually comments to Senku that, wow, you're amazing. And Senku,
I truly respect you.
Or truly respect you. Yeah, you're amazing. I truly respect you. And Senku's like, okay, well, anyone brave enough to, or anyone that compliments you to your face has an ulterior motive. So what's your point?
And he says, "Oh, nothing. I was just saying that I truly think you could rebuild a technological world."
Yeah, and
more foreshadowing.
Yeah, more foreshadowing, and in that I think is a very important scene because it's very telling for both characters. Because I feel like that moment cements in Senku's mind that this guy is not a good guy, or isn't to be completely trusted.
Right.
And Tsukasa, which we'll find out very briefly, is also going to now view Senku as a threat. And we'll get to Tsukasa's motivations and why he thinks that in just a minute, but that I feel like that's the moment that cements in both their minds that
we might be on different paths and final
we have
goals
different final goals.
And I think that probably wouldn't have risen as much if not for the conflict that's about to happen.
Exactly.
But that's what put in both their minds. We need to keep an eye out.
Yeah, I think that's the key point where, like, I think they were.
It shows that they don't trust each other. Like, it shows.
Yeah, it absolutely shows it. And I think even
when
from
I
the
said it was the first one, show don't tell is like their greatest strength.
Oh yeah, that's the greatest strength of this show. They very much show don't tell. And they've shown that Senku's been a little wary of him.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is the moment
where he tells him he's suspicious.
Where he tells him it, and it's that cementing moment of, I'm going to make it very clear I do not trust you. Like, I'm not going to hide it. Like, he doesn't outright go, oh, I don't trust you. But by saying you have an ulterior motive, what's your point? Like, it's cementing the fact that they have different goals. And I feel like that's very important and very telling. And then Taiju comes up and asks, "What's the fourth option? What was the fourth thing that we should make?"
Well, I said 3.
And he's like, "Yeah."
Yeah, and then Taiju was like, "Oh, did you? Oh, you must have said 3."
Yeah, you're smarter than me, and if you remember it that way, clearly you're right.
Yep.
And that is something that I actually thought was like really like that was like a really clever thing there. How he knows to keep his mouth shut, and he's kind of like he slipped, but he caught his slip and didn't explain.
After that little bit, he's now like, I gotta keep a card up my sleeve at least.
Yeah. Then it does a montage of Taiju collecting. Yeah, because there's in that whole process, there's a montage of Taiju collecting shells and smashing them and all that other stuff, and it cuts to them. I think it does a sleeping scene, and then they're back at the beach.
Which shows that Taiju's snoring is driving to
Tsukasa.
How do we keep forgetting his damn name? Driving him nuts.
I don't think it's his snoring.
I think he's more just
it's right after. I think because it's right after the scene where he because he told Tsukasa and Taiju that there were 4 options. Then he said there were 3.
Yeah.
So I think Tsukasa's aware that Senku's holding information back. I think that intense glare of his is because he caught on to the fact that Senku lied. On top of which he is now aware that Senku doesn't trust him.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the scene with them at the beach with Taiju collecting seashells and don't make me do a tongue twister. I will fail miserably.
Paleontology
reference. And while he's doing that, Senku and Tsukasa are off to the side on the beach having a conversation. And Tsukasa explains presumably his backstory. He talks about it in a third-party way. He says
He does.
there was once a boy.
The only reason why I hesitate to say it's his is in the story the boy gets beaten so badly he's unrecognizable.
Well, that's kind. I think
Yeah,
that's why he does. I think in a way he's separating himself from that
Yeah.
boy. And why he's
That's
such
why-
this
yeah.
that Adonis he is because he's separating himself from that. He's unrecognized. He's not that little boy anymore. He's
Very
unrecognizable.
true. That's a good analogy with it, or metaphor, whatever.
Yeah, that's what I took away from it.
Okay.
Yeah, same here.
So he tells a story of this little boy who went to the beach to collect seashells to make a necklace for his little sister because she loved the movie The Little Mermaid. And there was a drunk fisherman that owned the fishing rights to that spot. And the little boy who thought he was trying to do a nice thing...
The drunk guy accuses him of stealing, and then beats him up.
Yeah, and beats him, and he describes it till his face was unrecognizable, and he never got to make the necklace for his sister. I also suspect that, and that's his motive, because right as he's telling the end of that story, he's standing next to the statue of this older gentleman on the shore of the beach, and he just breaks the head off the statue. And Senku asks him, "Do you know what you just did? You just killed someone." And Tsukasa's like, "Yeah. I'm fully aware of what I did."
Yeah.
He calls it, and then he goes on to explain what his...
that he doesn't see it as murder.
Yeah, he doesn't see it as murder. So, final thoughts on the episode.
I think it's a slower start, but it's laying the foundation well, which is kind of what a lot of the point of this show is laying the groundwork for everything else to build upon.
And I agree with that. It does a very good job at that, like laying groundwork, building interest. And if you pay attention, you really can. Like if you pay attention, you can enjoy it. And if you're just in it for some yucks and whatnot, it does a good job. I'm just like certain parts just kind of are like this episode. When I first watched it, I was kind of bored, but not enough to where I didn't want to watch it.
And that was the same for me. For me, the episode overall is alright. There's a few interesting things here and there, but overall, I think it's just alright.
One extra little thought there is the first episode kind of sets you up for this. One of the closing thoughts of that is science is the slow grind to get to that point.
Yeah, you are correct. Yeah, so I guess it does make sense, and it does still follow the show. It's just
it's
like
not as exciting.
It's not as exciting as the first episode. Don't get me wrong, there are fun bits and there are somewhat exciting bits, but just overall, I felt like there was more in the first episode. It felt like more was going on.
Yeah.
This one, it didn't feel like as much was going on. So those are our final thoughts on this. To close this out, that was we are the Anime Reviewers. I am Zach. To my left is
Apollo.
And to my right,
Matt.
and that was our review on Dr. Stone, Episode 2, King of the Stone World.
Later.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the episode.
If you enjoy our content, please like, comment, and subscribe.
And for updates, please follow us on Twitter.